Happy Halloween. Actually, happy October. Hold on. P.S. Do not do this at home. Try to stop me from making a scary story video. In your face. Oh, by the way, do you guys like my new Halloween outfit? This is only temporary. Hold on. Basically, I'll be doing a showcase of Halloween outfits. I want you guys to choose the best one. But right now, I'm going to stick with my own. You're going to be seeing that in future vids. Alright, let's go ahead and roll and watch some scary stories. Be Busta. Oh, by the way, speaking of Be Busta, here comes Johnny.
I'm a girl, and my mum was a horrible addict. She barely took care of me as a kid, in fact. And at the time of this incident, I was around 6 or 7 or so. So my awareness and understanding of things happening may not totally make much sense. But this also happened in the 90s. So one night, my mother and I were on a car ride. I wasn't sure why we were driving, but it was late at night. I'm not sure what time it was, but I assume it was really late because there weren't many cars on the street and I was sleeping in the back seat. I don't even remember getting in the car, but my mum drove up to some sketchy house and left me in the car for what felt like forever. And suddenly, the car door swung open and someone violently grabbed me by my arm, yanked me out of it. I started screaming and crying until the man that grabbed me looked me in the eyes and said, "Be quiet and don't try to run or I'll kill you."
Right.
He had a scruffy beard and looked like, honestly, a madman. I was scared to death, so I just listened. Then he held me tight by my arm, shut the car door, and walked with me down the street. I looked back at the house that my mum was in, hoping that my mum would come out at the last second and save me. I looked at the house as long as I could as the man dragged me further and further away. As we walked down the street, I wanted to cry, but I was in shock and in fear. I didn't know what to do. If I sniffed or cried, the man would just tighten his grip and yell at me. I can't even explain just how scared and confused I was. We walked for a little while and ended up in the projects. The projects were a bunch of buildings crammed together in a really crappy neighborhood. We walked into one of the buildings and walked up a flight of stairs. My legs and feet hurt like hell, but I was too scared to stop moving or complain.
Watch your mouth, boy.
We walked up another flight of stairs when I saw some random guy smoking a cigarette in the stairway. Then, without warning, the guy that kidnapped me just fell to the ground. I didn't know how the kidnapper fell to the ground so fast, but the next thing that I remember is the cigarette guy just punching and kicking the kidnapper in his head and face. The kidnapper was out cold. Cigarette guy picked up the kidnapper by the back of his jacket and threw him down the stairs. You have no idea how scary and violent it is to see an unconscious man fall down the stairs like that. To this day, I still have a fear of falling downstairs, and he just bled everywhere. I still have no idea, too, how Cigarette Guy knew to help me, but I'm sure glad that he did. Maybe he could see tears in my eyes, or maybe he just picked up on something and had a bad vibe, but he acted instantly. The first second that he could, he attacked my would-be kidnapper, and Cigarette Guy starts pacing back and forth, swearing at himself, gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. I thought that he was mad at me, so I started to cry. He looked at me and said, okay, shut up." He had a terrible attitude as well, so I listened to him out of fear. I wasn't as scared of Cigarette Guy as much as the bearded guy, but I was still in fear of him. He started to ask me questions with an attitude like, "Why are you out this late? Where are your parents? Why would you talk to strangers?" I was just in so much shock and confusion that I couldn't answer the man's questions correctly. He asked if I knew my way home, and I told him that I didn't. I told him a broken story about what happened, and somehow with the information that I gave him, he knew where my mum's car was. The only thing that I remember about the road is passing a house with Christmas lights on it, despite Christmas already being over. I think that he knew the area well enough and figured out where I needed to go from that information, but I honestly don't even remember telling him about the Christmas lights. Anyways, he told me that he would take me back if I promised over and over that I wouldn't tell the police that I saw him or anyone that looked like him, and made me promise that I wouldn't even tell the police anything. Again, he was pretty scary, so I didn't care what he asked me to do. I just wanted to go back to my mum, so I agreed. I followed him down the stairs, and the bearded guy was still laying on the ground, bleeding at the bottom. He wasn't moving at all, and for all I know, he may have even been dead.
I'll make a tutorial
These
video on
days,
how to
I
make
now
costumes,
hope
by the
that
way.
he was.
Hold on. Let's
Cigarette guy.
straight out real quick. Kids, do not do this at home without your permission, without your parents' permission. Unless if you're old enough to be doing this, because, well, as you can see, I ain't really hanging myself. Look, see? It's just a Halloween costume. I'm not actually going to be doing that.
Stepped over the bearded guy, and I followed. We walked outside, and cigarette guy looked around panically. I remember him telling me, too, that the police don't like me. Well, we walked out of the projects, and my feet still hurt. Cigarette guy was walking fast in a panic, and I had to basically jog to keep up with him. I started crying, and he asked what was wrong, and I told him that my feet hurt, and I remember him sucking his teeth and picking me up with an attitude. He awkwardly cradled me in both arms. He walked down the road for a moment, and then I remember him swearing and running behind a house or a building. A cop car was driving down the road. He put me down and told me to run to the police car. I tried to run, but my legs could barely move, and honestly, I was scared. The cop car kept driving and rode away without seeing me before I could even get remotely close to it. He kept swearing to himself as he picked me up again and ran down the street. He took me behind a lot of houses and hid from every cop car that drove by. I assume now that the police were looking for me. He carried me in both arms, running fast down the road when I saw my mum at her car in the distance. She was surrounded by police, and cigarette guy put me down and told me to run over there. I got so excited that the pain in my legs just disappeared, and he put me down, and I just ran. I ran towards the police and my mum picked me up, and she hugged me tightly. The police started to ask me and my mum questions, and I don't remember too much about their questions, but I remember my mum telling the police some convoluted story that just didn't make any sense. She basically told me not to say anything, and I didn't say much, but I cried a whole bunch. And then we went home. Days later, my dad picked me up and knew something was wrong. I told him everything, and after that, I never lived with my mum again. When I grew up and had time to think about that day, I never did forgive my mother. And not too long ago, too, I asked my dad about what he remembers about the situation and told me what he thinks happened from what I explained to him from years ago. He said that my mum was on a drug binge. I got kidnapped. Someone saved me, but the person that saved me had warrants and wasn't mad at me. He was just frustrated with the situation that he had to deal with. Imagine being a criminal on the run and now having a kidnapped girl with you, and you just beat a guy up half to death. If he would have gotten caught with me, he could have easily gone to jail for my kidnapping. But with my mum lying and me being in shock and confused, I wouldn't be able to tell them that the man helped me because while it was all happening, I didn't even notice that he was helping me. But to the man that saved me that night, I owe you a very big thank you.
Hi,
Since we're on
I'm a hacker.
ads, I want to tell you
Your
guys
office may
something.
have great cybersecurity.
As you can
without
see, this
strong
is a little
cybersecurity
necklace
through
that
the
was
cloud
broken
network,
off.
it's like
And
taking
it's
candy from a
also
baby.
good UV at the little spine.
Go on, Carla. You know you want
As you
to.
can see, this is also very loose end, and well, I
Oh,
attached
that's
two
not good.
Without the
attached
best
two of these
security,
together. I'll
bad
explain
things
more in the
happen,
video
even in the cloud.
how I did
Checkpoint.
it in a
Welcome
different
to the
video.
future of cybersecurity.
Let's go move on.
Just recently, about 5 months ago, my family moved into
Sorry,
the
I was
house
trying
we're
to
in right
book
now
Halloween
after
vibe.
doing renovations on it for like 2 to 3 years straight. The house is in a low middle class neighborhood and needed a lot of work. After finally finishing it, we moved in ASAP and we got settled. It's very cozy and the neighbors are super nice too, so that's good. However, after about a week or two of just being in the house, at about 5 in the morning I woke up and decided to get a glass of water before getting ready for school. And to my surprise, I looked out of the kitchen window into the front yard and saw a man walking back and forth under the streetlight. Creepy as hell, yeah, but After only a few seconds of watching him, he looked up and continued down the road. I didn't think much of it at this point. It may have been just someone walking home or another location, so I
Alright
dropped
guys,
it.
well this is
Didn't
all
tell
we
my
got time for today. I hope you guys had a great day, and I'll see you guys either tomorrow or next week. I hope you guys have a great day, and well, remember, happy October. By the way, thanks for Alex for editing this video for me. Make sure to check it out in the description. Make sure to like, subscribe, and have a great day. Bye guys. Make sure to have a great day. Love it and live it to the fullest.